Hello, all of my super awesome gaming friends. It is, wow, I never introduced my videos like this. What am I doing? So, today I made my own little Splatoon Conspiracy Theory Iceberg because I missed the days of making, Splatoon Iceberg. So I thought, you know what? I'll make this one all from scratch. All ideas were put together by me. I didn't make all these ideas. A lot of these ideas were ideas I found in the community, and I will try to link as many sources as possible, but a nice chunk of these ideas were made by me. So, like I said earlier, this iceberg is about conspiracy theories in Splatoon lore. Some of these aren't from lore, some of these are just from like around the game and centered around Splatoon. But I chose a lot of these about things about lore, things that could be lore related. So, without any further ado, let's get right into it. First at the tip of the iceberg, we have Squid sisters are cousins. There's not a whole lot to this one. The Squid sisters are cousins, and if you didn't know that, you're probably pretty new to the Splatoon community, which, hi, I'm rizirone, turn back before it's too late. Yeah, Squid sisters are cousins if you didn't know that already. Next up is Where's Marina, which is about a Nintendo Instagram account post that they posted back in December of 2019, where they posted a picture of Pearl, Callie, and Marie, but Marina was nowhere to be found, and this got Splatoon players into a little tizzy, because we all thought Marina was going to be missing, because Callie was missing in Splatoon 2 after she had lost the Final Fest in Splatoon 1, which led people to believe that Marina was going to be missing and that Splatoon 3 was going to be announced soon, because they thought Marina was going to be missing in Splatoon 3, which could still be possible, but that idea leads us on to our next one. Save Our Salmons was a follow-up post that happened right after Nintendo confirmed that they were just teasing us on the whole But Where's Marina post. And in this, there was a picture of a salmon run, but in the picture, there was a hidden message that read Save Our Salmons. And this threw players once again into a tizzy less than a month later, because this got people thinking that maybe like Mr. Grizz is hunting salmonids to extinction, which is pretty much being hinted at with the whole Splatoon 3 trailer thing. So this was 100% a conspiracy theory that ended up being true. The Save Our Salmons post was definitely hinting towards Splatoon 3. After that is Octarian mind control, and this is another well-known conspiracy theory in Splatoon lore, is that Octavio is mind controlling the Octolings with the Octo-Elite goggles and the Neo Octo glasses, and basically the way that he keeps them under control is with these glasses, and he also did this with Callie, which is kind of how he found out they were under mind control, because Callie's glasses were pretty similar to the Neo Octoling glasses, and the only way that we know in-game to break the hypnotization is with the Calamari incantation. So yeah, the Octarians are under mind control until the Squid sisters break them out. In the next tier of the iceberg, we start out with Spike and Merch eat sea snails, and this is here because it is kind of hinted at that sea snails are eaten by Spike and Merch, because when you go by Spike in Splatoon 1, you can find sea snails trembling along with a screwdriver, I believe, and hollow shells from sea snails. So it is basically implied that these things are eaten like clams, where you take them out of their shell and then you eat them. So yeah, we are trading live animals to be eaten by these other creatures, and we don't even know what we're doing with them in game. Next up is Agent 4's age, and this is on here because there was a debate on how old Agent 4 was because of a comment that Marie had stating that Agent 4 was 2 years older than Agent 3, which is canonically incorrect, but this happened because of a translation issue with Splatoon 2's English version, whereas this quote doesn't really exist in the Japanese version of the game, which is rarely where all the canon comes from, so if it's not in the Japanese version of the game, it's not really canon. And then Nogami later went on to say that the Inklings in Splatoon 2 are 2 years younger than the Inklings in Splatoon 1, so this would make Agent 4 younger than Agent 3. Lil Judd versus Judd is a little bit of an unknown fact, but when Lil Judd was cloned, Lil Judd came out of the cloning device knowing that he was a clone and despised Judd and wants to take Judd's position. So we may see something down the line in later games, or maybe an expansion even, of the conflict between Lil Judd and Judd, and how basically Lil Judd is just waiting for the chance to just totally strike against Judd and take everything that Judd has. Inkling Religion is about a sunken scroll that you can find in Splatoon 2 that talks about something called the Book of Madai or Madai. I'm not really sure how to pronounce it, but this will become a lot more important in later entries and honestly to the whole government of Inkopolis, and I'll talk about that one in later entries. Idols are cuttlefish is a theory that has been bounced around a lot through the community, which I need to make a video breaking down, or depending on when this video comes out, I might have already done that. But basically, there's this conspiracy theory that Callie, Marie, and Pearl are all actually cuttlefish, or cuddlings, as the theory calls them. And this theory is kind of just it stretches a little bit. There's kind of hints at them being cuttlefish, but this is also a game with heavy cartoon aspects. When we hear Captain Cuttlefish quote-unquote joints crack, this could be so many things. We know that they have bone-like things, or it's theorized that they do. They have really strong cartilage that could be making the cracking noises that we hear in that. Or B, this could just totally be cartoony effects that we hear. And the whole, Marie talking about, cuddle bones, or, no, Captain Cuttlefish says something about cuddle bones, and Marie says something about bones breaking. This could be so many freaking things. This could be totally jokes. And the fact that they're referenced in multiple languages as squids, and that some countries don't have the jokes that are about bones in their versions of the game, the whole theory kind of falls apart. It's one of those theories, you think about it at first, and it makes sense, and then you do some more digging on your own and you feel like, wow, there's no way this is actually possible. So, yeah, this is kind of just another conspiracy that's just happens to be on here because of how much traction it got. Boss battle screams are dying octolings is basically all but confirmed. So basically you hear in the end of boss battles what appears to be screeching or screaming coming from somewhere. Well, we don't really know where until later in Octo Expansion. We find out that there's a giant test facility deep underneath Inkopolis that happens to be grinding up Octolings and Octarians. So the screeches that we're hearing have basically been all but confirmed to be the screeches of dead and dying Octolings being grounded up into a primordial ooze. Yeah, once again, this game was rated E, 10 and up. Remember that. Last for this tier is Agents 5, 6, and 7. So basically it's theorized that Agents 5 and 6 are Pearl and Marina, and Agent 7 is going to be the Inkling or Octoling we play as in Splatoon 3. However, it has never actually been stated in-game that Agents 5 and 6 are Pearl and Marina. They're always referred to as either Pearl and Marina or MC Princess and DJ Hyperfresh. So they're never actually referred to as Agents 5 and 6. This is just something that the community kind of came up with. And Agent 7 is probably not going to be the Inkling or Octoling we play through in Splatoon 3, because the species has always been something that needs to stay consistent, whereas the gender doesn't really, because squids and octopi can change their gender whenever they want. But they can't exactly change what species they are. So my theory is that in Splatoon 3, they're kind of going to step away from the whole Squidbeak Splatoon kind of thing and just take a different route. So there really isn't an Agents 5, 6, and 7. Tartar is alive is a theory that Tartar didn't die in Octo Expansion, even though it's stated that he does, because in the Final Fest promotion, Tartar gets his own entry that basically treats it like he doesn't die at all, but he's not really referred to as the telephone, he's referred to as Commander Tartar, so they're not doing that to avoid spoilers, because that's one of the biggest reveals of Octo Expansion, but basically, Nintendo kind of treats him like he's still alive, so it kind of fueled fire to the theory that Tartar is actually still alive. Sanitized enemies are zombies is a theory that doesn't actually state that they're zombies, but more of they're basically just not alive anymore. Marina states that they have no vital signs, and we also see in characters like Deadfish that it's a very rare occasion for a sanitized creature to keep any form of their past alive. So they might as well just be a dead zombie walking around, which is basically what that theory is. Marina is a war criminal. This is one that I really wanted to talk about and honestly wanted to make it its own video, and I might end up doing that one day. But to basically sum it up, Marina worked on Slimeskin Garrison, which is basically a place for really higher up Octolings. She helped work on high up Octarian tech like reforming some of the great Octo weapons and working on things like Flutters, which has been stated to have done serious damage to Agent 3 trying to get to the Great Zapfish in the Splatoon 1 campaign. So basically, Marina kinda worked on some weapons of mass destruction, so that kinda would make Marina a war criminal, which kind of gives fuel to another theory that didn't make it onto this iceberg, that the Squidbeak Splatoon is not an actual military branch and is more like a militia, because if this was a real military branch, I would believe that the Inkopolis FBI would be knocking on her door ready to take her to jail for a very long time for all of her war crimes. Splatoon 3 isn't in France is a theory that Splatoon 3 isn't in France because of some of the agriculture we see growing in the Splatoon 3 trailer, as well as the Eiffel Tower being in an odd position to have just been tipped over by water, or at least that's my theory on it. But basically there's just theories that Splatoon 3 isn't actually in France, and there's a little bit of evidence to support that it isn't, and not a whole lot of evidence to support that it actually is in France besides the Eiffel Tower being there. Splatfists are rigged is a kind of unknown theory that has absolutely no ground. It's just the idea that Splatfests are determined by Nintendo before the Splatfest even starts, and this is not true at all because in-game you can find the files of the losing team with their winning speech, so Nintendo does plan for the Splatfest to go either way, but this is kind of just made up by the team that lost to try to cope with the issues that they're dealing with now that they're big loser heads. Campaigns aren't real is the theory that the campaigns that you play through in Splatoon are either simulations or just like straight up made up things for kids in Inkopolis to go out and do, which is kind of made up because why would kids be going out and dealing with grinded up colleagues of their own and like dealing with some of the biggest energy crisis that the city happens to be facing? I don't think that this one is actually real just based off of what we've seen before with things like Salmon Run. Like, we are very obviously in Inkopolis sending kids into horrifying situations, so I really do believe that when we see the giant death laser of grinded up Octolings being shot at the pop star, this is probably something real, and that the Splatoon world is just that freaking crazy. Tartar is based on the professor's consciousness is a theory I believe I came up with, but honestly is so easy to kind of figure out or connect dots to that anyone could have made this. But basically the theory goes is that it's kind of like a Cortana from Halo situation, where the AI Cortana is based off of Dr. Halsey, where Cortana gets her brain matter basically put into her to create the AI. And that Tartar is pretty similar, that Tartar is created from some of the brain tissue or something else from the brilliant professor who created the Splatfest fax machine and Judd's cloning and all of the Judd-related things, as well as Tartar. And that basically what we are seeing from Tartar is basically just how like racist / speciesist that the professor can get, and the professor is just basically the most evil person to ever live and is just fully ready to commit genocide whenever he feels like someone's not ready. Basically, Tartar is just an extension of the professor, is what this theory kind of gets at, and Tartar is made out of the professor. Composers of exclusive gear music is a theory that Rassicas came up with, and I will link their channel in the description for coming up with this idea and the video that it came from. That basically, the Japanese exclusive gear had music to go along with the trailer of this gear, and this music is like very distinctively Splatoon, but never actually comes up in-game, which led Rassicas to believe that it was the lead singer of Squid Squad that was doing the vocals of this one song that I'll play right here. And I don't know whether or not they said that the whole song was made by Squid Squad or it was just the singer doing this, but basically all we really have for this theory so far is that the lead singer of Squid Squad was involved in making the trailer music for this exclusive gear, which just kind of does a little more lore and world building in my opinion, because there's more music that we have never heard of from all these bands, and this just kind of goes to show it a little more. Splatsville can be seen from Octo Canyon. This is a theory that I saw on Instagram, but I forgot by who, that honestly needs a lot more discussion. So basically, one of these shots from Octo Canyon that appears to be away from Inkopolis, that was always originally thought to be Inkopolis, shares a lot of similarities with what we saw of Splatsville in the Splatoon 3 trailer, implying that though Splatsville is far away, it is not as far away as we thought, which actually could put maybe Splatsville in like Korea or China, which is still not to be confirmed, and this theory does need a lot more in-depth investigation, but it's something to think about. Like, look at these two shots. They are pretty dang similar. So does this imply that we can see Splatsville from Octo Canyon? We don't know yet, but it could be. It very well could be, especially with the whole theory that Splatoon 3 isn't in France. This is definitely adding a little more fuel to that fire. The shot has always been here, and for all we know, this whole thing of Splatsville and Splatoon 3 could have very well been planned from the beginning, since the Splatoon team knew they didn't have a lot of time to work on Splatoon 2, and more of their time and resources were going to be spent in Splatoon 3. This is just a theory that was whipped up pretty quickly though, so do your own thinking on this one. The Book of Madai is ultimately about the Second Great Turf War. Basically this theory is the idea that the Book of Madai is equivalent to the Christian book Revelations, where basically it just talks about all the end time stuff and all the bad things that'll happen. And basically the Book of Madai in this theory is supposed to lead up to the Second Great Turf War. And from what we've seen on it, it's basically, the theory states that it's basically just about Samanids versus Inklings. This doesn't really have any weight to it. This is just a theory that I saw around the community that I decided to put on here to do a little talking about. I'm not a really firm believer on this one, although I do think the idea of a Second Great Turf War would be really cool to see in game. Alright, my favorite theory, one that I had to put on this iceberg, is Inkling space colonization. So basically this theory states that there is an Inkling base on the moon, and there are Inklings in space, and that eventually we will have Splatoon in space. There's literally nothing you can do to change my mind. Just look at the moon in here. There's an Inkling shape on the moon. That kind of stuff just doesn't naturally form or come up from one little venture into space. They had to have spent some time up there to like straight up carve the symbol of their people into the face of the moon. They have had to have had some space colony at some point, and if they don't have it still, they left a massive monument to their people. Like, this thing looks big compared to the moon, and we only see it from where we are on Earth. And imagine just how big that thing has to be actually on the moon. There's a massive monument to Inklings on the moon, so there has to have been some Inkling space colony, and there's no way they would just give up on space and go back when they've already gone so far as to build a monument to success on a different body in the universe. So there's definitely gotta be some Inkling space colony somewhere, at least on the moon. Entering into the second to last tier, Inkling government is a theocracy, and this theory is basically that the government is run by a theocracy because the Inklings worship humans and everything they've done, and there's theories that the Inklings' evolution was helped by what they've seen of depictions of humanity. We've seen older Inkling societies that have mimicked what they've seen from human societies, so their religions and basically whole society has evolved around what they've seen from humanity. And to further add proof that their government is a theocracy, Splatfests determine actual laws, and the Splatfests come from human signals that were beamed into space bouncing back onto the Earth. So they basically determine their whole government off of what has been beamed back from humans to Inklings, basically making their government a theocracy. This is a very different idea, and basically children recycling was another Rastica's theory that I just loved so much that I had to put it in here. So basically the idea of children recycling is that because most of these creatures evolved from fish that lay countless eggs, the situation that they've put them in allows them to get all of these eggs into a position where they can all actually hatch and come out. Whereas fish in real life lay so many eggs because it's not guaranteed that all of the eggs are going to hatch. But because the society that they live in allows them to make all of them hatch, there's really no way to deal with overpopulation, especially with how little land they have after the Great Flood. So the idea of children recycling is that basically the eggs that are laid, since most of them are guaranteed to hatch now, they can't have that happen because it would overpopulate the little area that they have. So instead, they have some of the children recycled in turn for something like a monetary benefit to deal with overpopulation, whereas you can keep some of the eggs that you lay and then get rid of the ones you don't and make a profit off of it. Especially with the whole idea of power eggs being a fuel source, this could definitely help the theory of children recycling a little more. It is definitely a grim concept, but keep in mind this species very openly eats the less evolved forms of what they are because they also have to deal with such a low source of food. So keep in mind that the practices that Inklings and Octolings do can always get much more grotesque. The last theory in this tier is that MK Ultra was passed on to sea life. This concept sounds really crazy at first until you do a little more digging. We already have seen that there have been AI in Splatoon that have been meant to pass down humanity's knowledge onto the next species. So who's to say another one couldn't exist that passed down the Project MK Ultra results to the Octarians, which allowed them to make their Hypno Shades and put them on all the Octolings? I don't know, there's really no better explanation for hypnosis in Splatoon besides the idea of something really creepy and scary, which the Splatoon lore is pretty much known for, of being really creepy and scary. So who is to say something can't have been responsible for passing down MK Ultra to the sea life that now uses it? We have now entered the final layer, and I also just kind of want to point out that I didn't make this iceberg to put all the super scary things at the end. I kind of just did this more of a put the less known things towards the bottom than the more known things. So first up for the bottom tier, Splatoon merchandise causes a time paradox. And this entry is something the more you think about, the more it hurts your head. So we already know that basically Splatoon is canon in the Splatoon world, like the Splatoon game. We see the album Splatoon being sold in the stores in Splatoon. So we basically are seeing that real life Splatoon related things are in the game. So there is a connection between real world stuff and the Splatoon universe. But the question is, how long do these connections keep going for? Because, if these things keep going, then does that mean Splatoon 2 is also canon to Splatoon world? Does this mean Splatoon 3 is canon as well? And better yet, do the events that happen in the Splatoon game also happen in the Splatoon world? So is basically the Splatoon game series a prophecy for the whole world of Splatoon? It basically just causes a big giant time paradox because everything that we get in the real world related to Splatoon could be in the actual Splatoon universe. That doesn't, it's so hard to try to explain. Basically, the Wii U and Splatoon were found in the Splatoon world, so this means that the stuff that humanity created around the Splatoon game series is actually in the Splatoon game. This is the biggest conspiracy theory that is probably on here. I'm pretty sure I came up with this one myself, but I think this is another one that everyone's kind of thought of, but hasn't really gone into it as much. Honestly, this one deserves its own video because it's such a hard concept to try to wrap your head around. Hi, post-production Rizzy here. I felt the need to come back in and say something else. So we can see that the Wii U is canon to Splatoon, but there really isn't to the normal person a visual clue that Splatoon is also canon to the Splatoon world. And to counteract this argument, I would ask you to look at the Wii U Pro controller with the Wii Remote attached to it. This is important and provides context to the whole Splatoon game being canon in the Splatoon world, because the only game that Nintendo ever told people to tie a Wii Remote around a Wii U Pro controller for was Splatoon. So, though not visible, Splatoon, the game, is very much like proven to be in this image from what we're seeing here because of the stupid controller setup. And to really prove that this is what it is, here's the picture of Nintendo saying that this is for Splatoon. So okay, here's the video now. Squid Research Lab is canon is the idea that the people that host the Splatoon Directs and all the other funny times we've seen them pop up throughout the Splatoon series is that is actually canon, and the people behind the Squid Research Lab are canon to the Splatoon game. And a little more fuel to this fire is there is obviously someone narrating the Sunken Scrolls. So who is to say that it's not also the Squid Research Lab, that the Squid Research Lab is just always watching from afar, researching the squids and the octopi. So there's not a whole ton of actual evidence to back this up, besides like if you slot the Squid Research Lab into the position of the narrator of the Sunken Scrolls, it kinda makes a lot of sense. So who's to say that SRL is not actually canon in Splatoon? The final entry for this one is kind of a joke, but Nogami is the professor. The idea for this one is basically that Nogami is absolutely insane, and he gets to decide all of the everything for the Splatoon series. So who's to say that Nogami did not make himself the professor, and later on we will see that he was the professor in game. We see a little bit of the professor in the Splatoon manga that opened up the Splatoon series and the art of Splatoon. We see that he's got some curly hair, so this honestly just plays more into the fact that I kind of just put this in here as a little joke, but you know, who's to say that Nogami won't ever make himself the professor? Hi, once again, post-production Rizzy popping in to do some clarification. So, in the earlier theory about Tartar being linked to the professor, this is not connected to the theory of Nogami being the professor. I'm not trying to say Nogami is a racist and, like, hates fictional squids or something. Just don't take that out of context. That's not how it's supposed to be. These are two totally different, disconnected theories, and once again, that last entry was kind of a joke. Alright, go on. But anyways, that is it from me. This was a quick little iceberg I threw together in about an hour and a half. And just let me know what you guys think of this. But wait, did you know that only 13.3% of you people who watch my videos are subscribed? That is way too low. And you know what? I've got an exclusive offer today. Today, and today only, if you subscribe, there's a slight chance I will show up to your house and give you your own pet squid. Yes, your own. You can keep it forever. It is no longer my responsibility. I can get this squid out of my house and to stop inking all over my floor. Alright guys, that is it from me, and I will see you all later. Bye.